Everybody. If you guys are just coming in right now, we're going to start about 5:05. Okay, so thank you so much for coming to the opening evening, the opening ceremony of the Mervyn M. Dymally exhibition. We're going to get started about 5:05 tonight. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to get started very shortly. So thank you so much for coming to our opening night of the Mervyn M. Dymally exhibit and exhibition. We're going to hear from our students. We're going to hear from family members. We're going to hear from community members about the accomplishments and work of Dymally. Okay, so just a couple more minutes and we're going to start. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Donna. For those that just came into our webinar, thank you so much for sharing space with us tonight to hear from students and the community members about the work of Mervyn M. Dymally. And we also would like to honor and acknowledge the family that is in the audience today sharing space with us as well. We're going to get started in a couple seconds, so just sit tight for us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Khadijah Monk. Dr. Monk, thank you for showing up. For those that do not know, Dr. Khadijah Monk is working with Big Data, and her collaborative partner is the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. So they're with us tonight as well. Thank you, Khadijah. It's so good to see you. I appreciate you being here. All right, we're going to get started very shortly. My name is Dr. Dawn Dennis. I am from the Department of History, and welcome to the Mervyn M. Dymally opening night and ceremony for the exhibition. We're going to hear from my students. We're going to hear from community members. We're going to hear from family members. So we really appreciate and we're so grateful that you shared space with us tonight to learn more about Mervyn Dymally and his accomplishments and contribution to the Los Angeles landscape. So thank you once more. Just give us a couple more seconds. Some more people are coming in.
Sunday kind of love. to last past Saturday night, and I'd like to know it's more than love at first sight. And I wanna
All right, we are ready to
someday.
go. Once again, thank you for sharing space with us tonight to learn more about Mervyn M. Dymally. I would like to introduce Kendall Faulkner, the social science librarian at Cal State LA. She is going to start us off with a land acknowledgement. Kendall?
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
With great respect, Cal State LA acknowledges the Tongva people as the traditional caretakers of Tovangar, the Tongva world, including the Los Angeles Basin, South Channel Islands, San Gabriel and Pomona Valleys, and portions of Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. Cal State LA is located within these lands. As an institution located on unceded Tongva land, we pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and our relatives' relations past, present, and emerging. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the University's relationship to Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Cal State LA more accountable to the needs of American Indian peoples.
Thank you, Kendall. I would like to introduce now Carlone Manuel, who's going to speak about Trinidad, and the daughter, Dr. Lynn Dymally. Carlone, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And I just wanted to share how proud I am of this exhibit and all the many people that have worked so hard to put this together. And I want to thank the Dymally family for being here. Miss Lynn, met her a few years ago, and she's been a wonderful person ever since. But I do want to tell you, when I first started working in the mayor's office, I was told about Mervyn Dymally, and they said, if you want to see a public servant, that's the template. That's a footprint you walk in for being a public servant. Then I found out he was Trinidadian, so I almost started partying because that's what we like to do. Well, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I got to find out. So what I did was I called my archivist, which was my mother in New York, and I said, do you know the Dymally family? And she's like, oh yeah, Dymally, he's a politician. I said, no, Ma, he's not a politician. He's a public servant. I met this. I opened up this box of just wonderful information about who this man is. So just to give you really quickly, what we're doing today in reentry work and working with people that are formerly incarcerated, he was doing it in the 60s and 70s. So what I'm saying to us is that we are thinking we're doing really innovative things. You should really learn about Mervyn Dymally and learn about the many things he's done 60s, 70s, 80s with the formerly incarcerated population. It is incredible. I'm thinking I'm coming up with new innovative ideas. Then I'm realizing, oh my God, I'm following in the footsteps of giants, and it is so important to understand the gravity of work and the body of work. And I do want to take the time right now to talk about the relationship of being Trinidadian, being, I can say, I'm Trini with Mr. Dymally, and the importance of knowing the family. And I do want to introduce you to someone that is a
Carlone, you still with
phenomenal.
us?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did I cut off?
Nope. Yeah, you cut off a little bit. No problem.
All
Continue.
right, I'll
Yeah.
keep going. I'll do the remix. So I just want to introduce you to a wonderful lady. She is phenomenal in her own right, Miss Lynn Dymally.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Dennis, Carlone, and especially the students. I'm so honored that you are putting together this exhibit. And I just want to share with you that my father, among all things, loved education and loved students. And he would be so pleased to know that the students at his alma mater are going through all of his documents and his memoirs and putting together an exhibit. I mean, he would be so thrilled. Nothing would make him happier. So I just want to thank the students and Dr. Dennis and the deans and everyone who has supported this project. And I'm so excited about looking at all of the things that you've uncovered from the over 300 boxes that he donated to the university. So thank you. And I wanted to acknowledge that there's a slew of Dymally family members in the audience, and we're all really excited and very grateful and appreciative of this exhibit.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would like to introduce Dean Carlos Rodriguez, and he will speak about the collection and just the larger, broader scope of the library as a central hub of our community at the Cal State. Dean Carlos, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Carlos Rodriguez. I have the honor and privilege of serving as Dean of the University Library here at Cal State Los Angeles. And on behalf of the library faculty and staff, I'd like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the Mervyn M. Dymally, the bridge builder of Los Angeles digital exhibit. I would also like to thank California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for Humanities, for providing the funding to support this online digital exhibit we opened today, as well as additional funding to support other public events featuring the work of civil rights pioneer Mervyn M. Dymally. I would also like to thank the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership for their support as well. The University Library is deeply committed to providing active learning experiences for a diverse student body, many who are first-generation college students and many who you'll hear from later today, through collaborative digital library and archival projects with Cal State LA faculty. I would especially like to thank Dr. Don Dennis, who is from the Cal State Department of History, who's serving as a project director for the Mervyn M. Dymally digital exhibit and who's had many collaborations with the library over the past several years. So thank you, Dr. Dennis, for your work.
Thank you so much.
The exhibit we opened today represents many hours of work, not only by our students, but also by several library faculty and staff. So I would also like to thank Zelia Camacho, who's the archivist and special collections librarian, Jamie Zeffrey, who's a library digitization assistant, and Kendall Faulkner, who's a social sciences librarian, for their work in developing this important digital exhibit. A year ago to this day, as with most academic libraries across the country, we made the difficult yet necessary decision to temporarily close our physical doors to the campus and the surrounding community. Although the JFK Memorial Library is still currently closed, the library has remained open. During this past year, we have expanded access to library e-resources, we've enhanced our online library services, programs, and exhibits, and we've increased our capacity to develop, manage, provide access, and preserve our growing digital collections. Although the library's physical collections no longer serve as the only defining characteristic of a modern academic library, its unique and distinctive collections and archival records, such as the Mervyn M. Dymally papers, is what increasingly distinguishes one academic library from another. The digital exhibit that we opened today highlights the life, the work, and legacy of Cal State LA alum Mervyn M. Dymally through curated collection of letters, documents, and photographs, which you'll have an opportunity to see later today. So again, thank you very much for attending this virtual opening celebration, and I look forward, as hope many of you do, to seeing the great work that our students have done.
Thank you, Dean. I would like to now introduce you to Representative Judy Chu, who will be our guest speaker. So please just let's acknowledge her and share space with her. I'm so appreciative of you coming and speaking at our opening night, Representative Chu. So thank you. You have the floor, please.
Well, thank you for having me. I am Congressmember Judy Chu. I represent Pasadena, but I am speaking to you from Washington, D.C. And I'm so honored to be taking part in today's opening ceremony for the Mervyn Dymally virtual exhibit. I want to credit the amazing students who took this challenge on and made it all possible. But I'm especially honored because I knew Merv. We served together for several years in the California State Assembly. And I can say that his life and his whole being is truly something worth commemorating. As students, we rely on our teachers and textbooks to tell us what matters. But as a former educator myself, I can tell you, teachers and textbooks can be incomplete. And class periods, days and semesters can be too short to cover everything. As a result, whether intentional or not, much of our academia can serve as gatekeepers, telling us whose stories matter and whose stories should be taught. And those who don't make the cut are either unknown or underemphasized. That's a disservice to not only those communities who are glossed over, but to all of us, especially in an area like Los Angeles, where our history is shaped by the cooperation and interactions between so many communities from so many backgrounds. That is why these students who set out to do this virtual exhibit mean so much. For starters, this was an enormous academic undertaking. The kind of work required to put this exhibit together, poring over documents and correspondence, understanding how to navigate special collections, that's the kind of work usually left to professionals or authors with the background, time, and access to go through archival materials. But instead, you didn't wait for someone else to decide that Mervyn's life was notable. You didn't wait for someone else to say his was a story worth teaching. You went out and you did it yourselves. I regret that today there are far too few young people who don't know Merv's incredible history. He was California's first Black lieutenant governor. They do not know that long before Kamala Harris broke barriers as the first child of Black and Indian immigrants in the White House, Mervyn was one of the first members of Black and Indian descent in Congress. Now, when we served together in the California State Assembly in the early 2000s, I truly got to know Merv. He was by that point in his second career in the State Assembly. And I know that he would be so ecstatic by this exhibit, not because it is telling a story, but because it is telling the stories that have been overlooked. Just as Mervyn fought to include African and Black American history in our textbooks, so are you ensuring that these fights and stories are taught as well. And in doing so, you are changing the way we understand our own history. As an immigrant from Trinidad, Mervyn understood what it meant to be treated as other, as someone deserving of unequal treatment. And he saw the way imperialist thinking was used to justify the mistreatment of the less fortunate in the US and around the world. As a result, he dedicated his career to speaking up for those whose voices were being silenced, becoming one of California's leading advocates for civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, labor rights, affirmative action, and so much more. I will always be grateful for one of his earliest fights for equal rights for women. As chair of the California State Senate Joint Committee on Legal Equity for Women, he authored legislation that eventually led to California's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. But what's even more impressive was at the same time he was chairing that committee, he was also chair of the Democratic Caucus, chair of a committee on military and veterans affairs, and chair of a committee on social welfare. And his focus on the needs of the most vulnerable people stayed with him as he rose to the House of Representatives. Even as the chair of a House Foreign Relations subcommittee, he never let international politics cloud what he knew was right. For instance, at the height of the Cold War, he flew to Moscow to fight for the right of Russian Jews to immigrate to Israel. Then later, he took the fight to Israel when they were blocking immigrants from Liberia. He criticized allies who supported apartheid and even our own government for supporting authoritarian regimes in Latin America. It's a legacy of principle or tearing down injustice and speaking truth to power. But for too long, it was a legacy too few knew about. Until now. Finally, thanks to the incredible work from these students, details from these battles and so much more that Mervyn fought for are accessible to a whole new generation. Thanks to this exhibit, you're ensuring more Californians understand our history and the role that transformative figures like Mervyn Dymally play. I'm so grateful to all of you who worked so hard to make this exhibit possible and for telling Mervyn's story. And I'm grateful to be a part of today's ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Chu. I appreciate this. Grateful to share space with you. I would like to now introduce my dean, Dean Pamela Scott Johnson from the College of Natural and Social Sciences, please.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Dennis has said, my name is Pamela Scott Johnson. I'm the Dean of the College of Natural and Social Sciences. I want to welcome all of the students, faculty, staff, and our esteemed guests for the opening reception of the Mervyn Dymally, the bridge builder of Los Angeles. It is my honor to support this exhibit, which spotlights an exceptional educator and community builder, not just a politician, who was deeply committed to human rights and advocacy on behalf of marginalized people. Dymally's life and work exemplify how we can all be agents of change during a time where change is badly needed. As we have seen from the events of the past year, the importance of advocacy on behalf of those othered is just as important today as it has ever been. As an educational institution, I am proud that the exhibit allows us to exemplify the voices of those silenced, overlooked in the history books, and share stories of our collective experiences. While the pandemic has impacted us all in unimaginable ways and have altered the delivery of the university's programs and services, I am ecstatic that such a significant exhibit can be viewed virtually and shared online. Before I cede my time, I would like to thank Representative Judy Chu for joining us today, inspiring with her message and constantly lending support to the university's programs, and most importantly, Cal State LA students. I want to thank all the people involved in the project, particularly my colleague and friend and just an extraordinary person, Dr. Dawn Dennis, to our partners in the university library, Dean Rodriguez, Kelsey Brown, Kendall Faulkner, and Azalea Camacho. I do want to thank the family and all those involved for joining us this afternoon. Students from Dr. Dennis's classes since 2019 also assisted with the project, and I salute them for their commitment. I would also like to thank the Education Department at the Autry Museum. Finally, this project would not have been made possible without the support from California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for inviting me, and I truly look forward to this virtual tour of the exhibit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Scott Johnson. I appreciate you so much. I would like to introduce now the head of special collections, Mario Ramirez, who will share with us. Please, thank you.
Thanks so much, Dawn. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Mario Ramirez, and I'm the head of special collections and archives at Cal State LA. In my brief time with you, I just want to extend a heartfelt congratulations to Dr. Dawn Dennis and my colleagues Azalea Camacho and Kendall Faulkner, not only for garnering this Cal Humanities Grant, which is going to be supporting this wonderful exhibition and all this wonderful programming, but really for a really successful collaboration. And also, I just want to applaud sort of the really rich collaboration at the heart of this project, and that's between Dawn Dennis and Azalea Camacho, and really that sort of excellent way in which they brought archival practice and education and embedded it into their classroom. It's really going to serve as a model for what we're hoping to build as an information studies and archival studies minor program at Cal State LA for our undergraduate population. And it's really sort of at the base of what we're doing in many ways and inspired by it in many ways. Finally, I just want to say really quickly, I want to make an announcement that that Special Collections Archives was really fortunate to receive a grant from the John Randolph Haynes and Dora Haynes Foundation, which is a local Los Angeles foundation, for the physical organization of not only the Mervyn Dymally papers, but also the papers of Julian Nava, Richard Alatorre, and Julian Dixon. So we'll be working on those projects in the next year, so please look out for that, because these wonderful papers are going to be available for you and available for research for our students and also the extended community. So welcome. Thank you again for being here, and congratulations again to Azalea, Dawn, and Kendall. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mario. I'm so glad to see you. It's good to see you again. I would like to introduce the Special Collections Archivist, Azalea Camacho, to say a couple words before we move on in our program.
Hi everyone. Again, my name is Azalea Camacho. I'm the Archivist and Special Collections Librarian at Cal State LA. And it has been a great pleasure and opportunity for me to be involved in the inception of this project and see it into fruition. When I first started at Cal State LA, the Dymally Papers was a collection that I aimed to process, and it has been a very fruitful experience to involve students in the processing of this collection. The collection is over 300 boxes of materials that range from correspondence, photographs, press releases, committee and congressional files, speeches, publications, and ephemera. And in 2019, Dr. Dennis and I worked on developing a project-based and active learning experience for teaching history and archival practice for her race and ethnicities course using the Dymally Papers. And the collaboration, as you can see, continues to grow, involving more students, faculty, and partners. I thank you, Dr. Dennis, for giving me the opportunity to embed archival practice in your course by teaching students how to process and archive collections, specifically focusing on correspondence and photographs of the Dymally Papers. And not only that, but the students also selected documents that related to the themes that they were learning in the course that you will see throughout the exhibit. I would also like to thank Special Collections student assistants Jocelyn Acosta and Cyrene Cruz for assisting early on with training students in Don's class, or in Professor Dennis's class. And also compiling all the inventories and work that they did. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible. We had about 30 students in Special Collections processing a collection when it usually happens with a couple of people. So I couldn't have done it with their help. And I would also like to thank Jamie Zeffrey, Digitization's project assistant, for her help with digitizing these materials and really taking on a lead for helping with the copyright and making these available so we can make them available online for you all to see. And last but not least, I also would like to thank my colleague Kendall Faulkner, the social sciences librarian, for joining us on this project and building a lesson plan for exhibit and label writing. I really enjoyed our collaboration, all three of us. So thank you so much.
Kendall, go ahead and say something.
Thank you, Azalea. I just want to say what a joy it was to work on this project and work directly with the students, helping them write these exhibit labels. Every class that I worked with, I was, really proud of the incredible insights the students had working with the items, and really impressed by the additional sources they were able to bring in. Writing exhibit labels might seem like kind of a narrowly focused skill just for students who want to work in museums, but this type of writing really challenged students to think about writing for the web, about writing for a wide audience, succinctly in a short form. And these are really highly transferable skills for the modern workforce. So even though many of the classes that we worked with were history classes, we had a really wide range of students studying in many different areas. And it was just so wonderful to see all of the other kind of cross-disciplinary knowledge that they brought to this. It's been a joy.
Thank you, Kendall. As you know, my name is Dr. Dawn Dennis. I am so appreciative and grateful that I was able to collaborate with Azalea organically. Everything that we've done is kind of organically. We just sit and talk and create things. I'm thankful for Kendall Faulkner for joining our committee. I would like to honor and acknowledge my former professor at Cal State University Northridge. His name is Dr. Ronald Davis, and he introduced me to processing courthouse records in Natchez, Mississippi. And I was like 21, 22 when I went to Mississippi. It was a wild ride. And I just remember looking at these documents, and I tried to, do this again with my students. And so I would like to honor him as really giving me a start in processing and working with collections. I would like to also honor and thank Veronica Proctor, who is part of the Autry Education Department. She and I have collaborated on a couple of exhibits with my students, and I'm just very grateful for her leadership and her guidance in what I do. I would like to also honor and thank Dr. Angelica Vergara, who worked tirelessly with my students on a letter from Chile. She's been very supportive of me and my goals as well. I would like to also honor and acknowledge Dr. Kitty Ali from the history department as well. She has really worked with me and just stood in support of what I wanted to do with archival studies and the types of assignments and activities I've planned with my students. And lastly, I would like to honor Very quickly, Dr. Sarah Pugash, her history 3450 students, public history students, are now working on a portion of this exhibit. They will be speaking to us later tonight about their work with the Africa and foreign policy. Last but not least, I would like to honor Joe Paul Jr. from the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. I met him about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. We worked together organically, and he has been a source of support for me in putting together and working with so many different people to produce this exhibit. I would like to also introduce to you Anthony Garcia, who is my collaborative partner as well from the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. And I would like to have him come and speak to you guys very quickly. So Anthony, thank you for joining us and thank you for your support.
Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Garcia. I will open this section by acknowledging Mervyn Dymally and the Dymally family for all of the prison advocacy they have done. Then I will be reading the header and a quote that was introduced into this section.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. We're going to start with the timeline first and everything, and then we're going to come back to you so you can introduce the section on mass incarceration. But
Okay.
thank you. Tell them a little bit about the program, though. What LARP is, tell them.
So LARP, so LARP consists of, LARP's mission, first of all, the Los Angeles Reentry Partnership, its mission is to support the development and implementation of a comprehensive, cultural, competent, and effective community reentry system by providing a strong community voice in public policy and funding decisions, by serving as a convener of reentry service providers, advocates, and other stakeholders, and by building capacity among stakeholders to meet the needs of system participants. LARP is the largest county-wide network of reentry-focused nonprofit organizations, public agencies, and advocates that works to ensure that our reentry systems meets the needs of our agencies, communities, and the people we serve, both in terms of capacity and public policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Anthony is going to join us in a couple of minutes to talk about his personal experience with mass incarceration when we get to that section of the exhibit. So thank you for sharing that. I would like to introduce to you now again, my former student, Jocelyn, and she and Julian will talk to you really about the life of Mervyn Dymally. So we're going to get started with looking at the exhibit now. So thank you again for sticking with this program and sharing space with us. Okay, Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine, and I'm an intern with the Cal State LA Special Collections and Archives. I was involved with the special collections during my undergraduate years at Cal State LA when I had the opportunity to use the collection for research purposes during my enrollment in Dr. Dennis's class. Now I'm attending the Masters of Management in Library and Information Science program at USD, and tonight I'm joined by one of my USD colleagues, Julian Della Pupa.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Julian Della Pupa, and I am a special collections intern over at Cal State LA, but I'm also a graduate student along with Jasmine Oriana at USC, and I'm happy to be here today to review the timeline in just a little bit. Thank you again, Jasmine.
So Julian and I will be introducing Mervyn Dymally and highlighting his political career. Mervyn Malcolm Dymally was born in 1926 in Cedros, Trinidad. He immigrated from Trinidad to the US at the age of 26, where he dedicated his life to public service as an educator, as the first Black Lieutenant Governor of California after serving in both the California State Assembly and State Senate. Dymally represented a Southern Los Angeles County district in the US House of Representatives for 12 years and served on the Foreign Affairs Committee, where he was an outspoken advocate for international human rights and economic development. As an educator and alumni of Cal State LA, Dymally's work on coalition building and challenging racial barriers and human rights for those who have been othered in marginalized spaces. While a teacher, Dymally volunteered as a campaign worker and joined the California Young Democrats, where he served as a state treasurer. In 1960, he worked for the Democratic National Convention in Los Angeles, where John F. Kennedy was chosen as the party's presidential nominee. He later served as a field coordinator for Kennedy's presidential campaign. Dymally's political career began in 1962 when he won the election to the California State Assembly. 4 years later, Dymally became the first Black ever elected to the California Senate. He chaired the Senate Democratic Caucus, 3 full committees of social welfare, military, and veterans affairs, and the Joint Committee of Legal Equality for Women, for which he authored the legislation and eventually resulted in the state's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. He was also the chairman of the California State Black Caucus. As a congressman, Dymally criticized US imperialism, including foreign policy and the mistreatment of people in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. Dymally's interest in human rights extended to other parts of the globe as well. For example, he wrote to the Pinochet regime demanding that human rights violations cease. More examples of his work are available through the exhibit. As an advocate for the working class, Dymally voiced concerns about the economic, social, and political issues that impacted diverse communities, including Africans and Caribbean immigrants. In February 1992, Dymally announced that he would retire from the US House at the end of the 102nd Congress in January 1993. In his retirement, Dymally worked as a foreign affairs consultant for Caribbean, African, and Asian interests. In 2002, he was elected to the California State Assembly to represent a district that encompassed South Los Angeles and the cities of Compton, Paramount, and Long Beach. Now, Julian will be presenting the timeline of Dymally's career.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine. Hello, everyone. It's Julian once again. We're just going to briefly cover Mervyn M. Dymally's political career here using this timeline that myself and Jasmine worked very hard to piece together, and hopefully you all will learn a little more and also enjoy. So to start off with here, we have the photograph of Mervyn M. Dymally shaking hands with Muhammad Ali. I thought this would be a great photo to include in the beginning, seeing that his political career spans many decades, and he's met a number of many interesting and incredible individuals throughout his entire career. Next slide, please. Great. So as you heard, Jasmine talked a little bit about his field coordinator work already, and that happened in the 1960s when he was working for John F. Kennedy's presidential campaign. But the photo that we've included here is him as a teacher in the 1950s at one of the schools that he taught at. As was said also earlier in our presentation, Mervyn Dymally was well known for supporting education and was an advocate for students and for education in general. So including this here is absolutely important, as it's very pivotal to his life and also his political career. Next slide, please. Great. So this is a photo here with Mervyn M. Dymally in the California General Assembly. As said before, he managed to enter the California General Assembly in 1963, where he ended up winning by 7,371 votes. Next slide, please. This is just a photo here of the 53rd district, which is the district that Dymally represented when he was in the California State Assembly. Next slide. And this photo here is Dymally in Selma. He took part in the Selma marches, the very famous Selma marches that took place during the civil rights movements. And he was there along with many other activists. I'm sure we all know Dr. King was also there. And we felt it was very important to include this photo because Mervyn M. Dymally is an activist. He's someone who continuously fought for Black rights and for the rights of many other individuals. And it's just very incredible to see that Mervyn M. Dymally be a part of so many different historical movements and moments throughout his entire career. So we thought adding this photo here would be just very interesting as well. Next photo, or next slide, please. So in 1967, as we said, he ends up becoming the California State Senator, and he ends up being the first Black California State Senator. And the photo that we have here is Mervyn M. Dymally with Dr. King. This is also someone else that he also met throughout his political career. Next slide, please. This is a photo here of the 29th district. This is the district that Mervyn M. Dymally would also represent once he ends up becoming California State Senator. Next slide, please. In 1975, he ends up becoming Lieutenant Governor, and that ends up making him the first Black Lieutenant Governor. And the photo that we have here is an endorsement ticket. And as you can see in this photo here, this is Robert F. Kennedy when he was working, or when Dymally was working with Robert F. Kennedy on his campaign. And he was one of the people that ended up supporting him and endorsing him for his run for Lieutenant Governor. Next slide, please. So this is a photo here from 1980. It's actually more of a poster. It's for the Latino Community Festival. And this is meant to highlight Mervyn M. Dymally's coalition work. Mervyn Dymally built many bridges throughout his political career, and we thought it would be important to include this particular image to the timeline, just to showcase that he was an individual who definitely reached across the aisle and worked very hard to ensure that the rights of all people would end up being respected. In this particular photo, we see Mervyn Dymally shaking hands with a former president of Mexico. Next slide, please. So in 1981, he ends up entering the House of Representatives because he wins the race and he's there until 1993. And as seen here, this is just a certificate of his election that was presented to him after he had won the race. Next slide, please. So this is a photo here from 1985, and we included it as well because, again, it shows that Dymally has always been there for students, constantly supporting them and having their back. And this particular photo is of the students from Roosevelt Junior High School that were at the Capitol building. As you can see at the bottom there, Dymally is there. Next slide, please. So this photo here is Mervyn M. Dymally holding an award that was given him by Dr. Haling, who is the creator of the 100 Black Men of Los Angeles, which is a nonprofit organization and also a community organization that helps out underserved individuals in the community. Dymally is receiving this award for all of the various works that he's done to support the LA community as a whole. Next slide, please. This photo here is with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Dr. Dorothy I. Height, two individuals that Dymally has worked with and was known to work with as well. Just want to briefly highlight Dr. Dorothy I. Height, as she's a relatively famous civil rights activist and also women's rights activist. And in this particular photo, this is when Mervyn M. Dymally had showed up at the Black Family Reunion Celebration, which is a celebration that was created by Dr. Dorothy I. Height. Next slide, please. Finally, Mervyn M. Dymally retires in Congress in 1992 at the age of 65. Next slide. But of course, he would return for his work in the California State Assembly in 2002 at the age of 76. And the photo that we have here is him standing next to Governor Schwarzenegger after Mervyn Dymally had pushed forward an initiative for a Black think tank that Arnold Schwarzenegger ended up signing into law. Okay, that within itself was a brief overview of Mervyn Dymally's political career and also the timeline that Jasmine and I had pieced together. Before I go, and before Jasmine goes as well, we just would like to give our personal opinion and sort of thoughts on working on the Mervyn M. Dymally collection as library science students. What I just wanted to say is that my time working with this collection has been incredibly eye-opening and just amazing. I just want to thank Cal State LA for the opportunity to have worked with all of these incredible primary source materials and all of these images, so that way I could help to create and enlighten others with the life of Mervyn M. Dymally. I also just wanted to say personally that I myself am a biracial Black person, and for me to be able to work on this incredible public figure who's also a Black person, it fills me with joy and with pride and empowerment to be able to work with these materials firsthand. So I just want to thank everyone and also thank Dr. Dennis as well for this opportunity. So, Jasmine.
Thank you, Julian. As following off of what Julian stated, as a library information science student, working on the Dymally collection has been a rewarding experience. I was able to immerse myself in the exhibit and learn more about Dymally's work and apply my skills learned in my LIS program, and as well the skills learned during my time at Cal State LA as a history student. I would like to thank Special Collections and Archives Department and Dr. Dennis for allowing me to participate in this exhibit. Now, I would like to reintroduce Anthony Garcia from LARP and introduce Kenny Johnson and Aaron Lugo, who will be introducing the next section, Letters Behind Bars, Writing from People Experiencing Incarceration.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Garcia. Letters Behind Bars, Writing from People Experiencing an Incarceration. How do we view incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men and women? As human? As the other? A quote by Nipsey Hussle. If you check the stats, the murder rates in the years I was a teenager and the incarcerated rates in LA in my section of the Crenshaw district of the Rolling 60s when I was 14 or 15, none of my peers survived. None of my peers avoided prison. None of them. Everybody got bullet wounds and felonies and strikes. So to make it out mentally stable and not in prison and not on drugs, that's a win. That's a victory in itself. So this quote echoes the reality of a lot of people. A lot of people coming from marginalized communities like myself. I am one of those people. I too am formerly incarcerated. Having spent over a decade of incarceration and over 2 years of solitary confinement, I use that time to grow and educate myself, to help me understand why so many prisons are packed with the majority of these prisons being Black and brown people from our marginalized communities. From this point on, I have made it a commitment of mine to become a change agent, an advocate for equity, understanding the disparities that currently exist is what impacted me the most. It has been 3 years now to the date, as of March of 2018, since I've been released. And not a day goes by where I don't teach myself how to build and protect wealth in order to further educate our people from marginalized communities about financial freedom, but also simultaneously, I've had the honor and join an organization as a program coordinator, which is LARP, who focuses on prison and reentry advocacy. I oversee the Leaders Training Academy, which consists of a diverse group of 12 individuals who are formerly incarcerated as well. This training academy serves to assist the leaders to build capacity by way of enhancing their individual leadership and advocacy qualities each one already has. Below in this exhibit is a section where two of our leaders, Janaea Richardson from our integrated health team and Lamai J. Glenn from our educational team, where they narrate accounts from peers who were incarcerated during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there they'll explain details of how living during the COVID-19 pandemic is like. I would like to, just before I conclude this, I would like to thank Dr. Dennis and Cal State LA for the opportunity to collaborate on such an important historical exhibit. I would like to thank the managing director at LARP, Joe Paul, and Juliana Mendez, the project manager, and all of our LARP family for making this possible. I would also like to honor Mervyn Dymally and all of his great work and his family's great work. And I could only hope to add to this advocacy work that he has contributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. This is great. Okay, now we're going to hear from Kenny Johnson, please. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony. Really powerful, man. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Kenny Johnson. I'm in my first semester at Cal State Los Angeles. I'm a current student of Dr. Dennis. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present this next section, Letters from Incarcerated Men, as I'm formerly incarcerated myself. I spent 13 years behind bars in prison. I've been home now for 80 days. I currently work for Project Rebound. As you read through this section, I'd like you to pay attention to the contents. I'd like you also to pay attention to the letter co-authored by the Blacks and Chicanos. As inside prisons, these are sworn enemies. As you pay attention to the contents, please note that these men had to come together, put their differences aside, to put this together to highlight the violence often caused by the prison guards and staff. In my 13 years, I was housed in some of the most notoriously violent prisons: Calipat, High Desert, Pelican Bay. I can attest to the condition that these men speak on. I can attest to the condition that still persists today. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who brought this to light and for everybody who participated and helped create this exhibit. With that, I pass the baton on to Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron Lugo. I am a recent graduate from Cal State LA, and I had the opportunity to go ahead and work on this project last semester, fall 2020, with Professor Don Dennis. And I worked on a piece from the archival material. It was a letter written by Alex Landon, a lawyer, to Mervyn Dymally, trying to build a coalition to uplift the conditions in the San Diego County Jail. It was written in 1972, and at the time being, there was already an uptick in mass incarceration. And when I researched, it really dawned on me that the origins of modern day mass incarceration didn't begin in like the 80s or 90s. It actually began in the 60s and 70s with Johnson and Nixon. And Nixon actually had a campaign against crime, and he declared drugs as public enemy #1. And I would look at other sources and see how crowded the prisons are becoming, especially at San Quentin. And I look at people like Mervyn Dymally or Alex Landon, and it serves as a reminder that we're still not out of the clear. We still have a long fight ahead of us for people who are receiving injustice in our prison systems. And with that, I would like to pass it on to Professor Don Dennis.
Thank you so much. I want you guys to really, when you look at this exhibit after this opening night, to go back and read through these letters. We do also have a section on state violence. This is what we're talking about. This is what affects everything from education to eating right to even feeling safe in your own home and your own community. And this is something that impacts our students. Our students do not feel safe a lot of the times in their own communities because of state violence. So we do have letters written to Mervyn Dymally about these issues and everything. So when you get a chance, go through this section right here about state violence and unjust systems. My colleague, Dr. Khadijah Monk, is going to be presenting on big data with her class, and she's working on some of these same issues and everything. So please honor the memory of Dymally to really explore this exhibit after this opening night. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I would like to introduce to you my two former students, excuse me, Valerie Lopez and Rigoberto Garcia, who's going to talk about ethnic studies and educational equity with Mervyn Dymally.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dennis. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. My name is Valerie Lopez, and I am a former student of Dr. Dennis, and I was able to contribute to the Mervyn M. Dymally collection. I want to start off by saying that Mervyn Dymally was the first Trinidadian to serve California as state senator and lieutenant governor. He is very important because he said and expressed opinions and feelings that people had but couldn't really voice to make that change. Although he did more than just talk about these problems, he sought forms of justice that would enhance the lives of many people. I have learned about contemporary Los Angeles barriers that Dymally faced, and such challenges that he faced were to improve healthcare for the poor, sponsored legislation to lower the voting age right to 18, educational rights, and expand civil rights protection for women. Although he did all of this, I want to focus on educational rights. Dymally was all for educational rights. He believed that better education was needed in some communities because it assisted with child growth and development. And with that being said, I want to connect on our section, and it is stated that institutional racism sustained educational inequalities within the Los Angeles Unified School District, LAUSD, that produced a 60% dropout rate of Latino students in the 1950s and 60s. Teachers prohibited Latino students from speaking Spanish, and as Gloria Anzaldúa writes in Borderland La Frontera, that prohibiting Spanish in the educational setting was tantamount to linguistic terrorism designed to erase language. This really stood out to me in our section in the text because I have a story that I've heard of from my girlfriend's grandparents. They actually had to face this educational issue. Before the pandemic had occurred, I would always go over to the house and notice that they didn't speak Spanish. And that was very interesting to me. And one day they asked me if I could speak Spanish, and I told them, yes, I do speak a little bit of Spanish. And that's when the question came up. I asked them, why don't you guys speak Spanish in your household? And they told me a story of that. When they were in school, they would speak Spanish around their friends, but one time they got caught by their teacher. And the teacher got mad at them and told them that speaking Spanish wasn't allowed in the schools. And they told me that they felt such shame and discouragement of speaking Spanish, and that ever since then, they didn't feel comfortable to speak Spanish. They only spoke Spanish if they needed to. So I just want to point that out because it's just so important how these issues back then, are still affecting people today. And I want to also include Dymally's efforts in the California state legislature that resulted in the integration of African American history into the public school curriculum. So in our text, It is also shown that Dymally, as a 5th grade teacher, he felt such horror at the textbooks that he was using to teach in his classrooms. And since he saw education as a top priority for his time as California government, he wanted to make sure that people knew that these textbooks were not portraying African American history properly. And there is a quote that we also include in our section that he states, "Therefore, it is your challenge to reconstruct the past so that Black men and Black women and Black children will know that their political history is one of which they can be justly proud. It is your responsibility to document the facts not only for today's generation, but tomorrow's children." And that quote really resonated with me and is so important to talk about, because you can't let people who didn't face racial discrimination and other challenges to write textbooks used in schools to teach African American history. And with all this being said, I want to connect it to my experience with in Dr. Dennis's course. So my first day at the class, I seen Dr. Dennis and she introduced herself and she was talking about what we would be doing in our course. And at first I was so confused. Some of the words didn't even make sense to me at the time, but I knew that it would all come together. And when I showed up to start on the collection, Dr. Dennis and Azalea and many others were there to present a video on Mervyn M. Dymally. And afterwards, they talked a little bit about him and they told us our assignment for the rest of the semester. And I want to make sure that I had everything right and was fully prepared. So I asked Azalea to help me out on how to do it properly. And so she told me that I would have to organize it based on names and dates. And I did that and I managed to do very well. And throughout going through the boxes and the documents, I learned that Mervyn was a very important public figure and he worked well with many other activists. And that is so cool to me because I learned about someone new in my life, you know, because I always heard of Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez, but I've never heard of Mervyn M. Dymally. So it is great that they brought him to my attention and I get to learn more about him and share the information that I learned to others. And the most interesting aspect of my box was that I organized it and I can see throughout all these documents that I'm holding from that time period that I can see Dymally's motivation that he had when he wanted to create this change. And I found many documents such as thank you letters from a variety of people, invitations to events because they want him there, and documents that displayed how people from communities were so involved in Mervyn's success. And some that stood out to me were from different people, such as President Reagan, the House of Representatives, students, and people of the community. These letters were written to Dymally and were very crucial to his success because they're giving him that motivation and they're showing his gratitude towards him. And all the interesting documents that I've gathered from my box can exemplify the type of person that Mervyn M. Dymally was. He was a strong and determined speaker for all. He was motivated for change and had certain goals to make this world a better place. And after doing this, I have improved and worked on academic and real life skills. I learned and gotten better at this project by reporting, researching, collaboration, critical thinking, and organization. I'm very appreciative of having done this project since it is a new experience for me and because it is one of the first courses at the California State University of Los Angeles to work on the Dymally collection and contribute to building finding aid. This development of new knowledge about Dymally's pivotal role in the history of Los Angeles will remain in my memory, shared with others, and will be available in the finding aid. It was great to be a part of this project and great to be able to help the archives with this collection. So I want to say thank you so much for listening, and I will now pass on to Rigo to explain more on our section in this exhibit. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Rigo, are you here
Hello,
with
good
us?
evening, everyone. I'm here with you.
Good.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Rigoberto Garcia. I'm a CSULA student and a former student of Dr. Don Dennis, and I want to thank her for the opportunity to be a part of this project with her and her students. Mervyn Dymally's many contributions to education included a bill to require Black, Indigenous, and peoples of colors histories in California textbooks, securing funding for what is called now the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, and fighting for school desegregation. Dymally's inspiration to fight for racial inequality in the education system came during his time as an educator in the 1950s. He was able to experience firsthand the powers of oppression in textbooks that his students were required to use. Textbooks that still used ideologies such as a lost cause that minimized and normalized slavery in the Confederate States. I would like to share a personal story that kind of ties everything in with Mervyn Dymally's fight about my father. I remember speaking to my father about his time in grade school as a new immigrant to the United States. He attended grade school in the Coachella Valley, where he first experienced racial inequalities in the public school system. For example, when lunchtime came, all the school children would be lined up according to the color of their skin, with the white children having the first servings of lunch and the Black Latino children would follow at the end of the line. Frequently, the cafeteria would run out of food, and the children in the back of the line would not be fed. This was always painfully yet shocking to hear every single time he mentioned it. During Dymally's time at the California State Assembly, he introduced 2 bills that would change what was published in public textbooks. Legislation AB 580, which was passed in 1965, which required California textbooks to include Black history. Also legislation SB 572, which was passed in 1967, which expanded the requirement to include Mexican American, American Indian, and racial and ethnic groups in history textbooks as well. In 1970, Dymally authored a memo in the Journal of the Black Politician with fellow state senator Albert S. Rhoda, which supported busing as a method to decrease segregation in California. In that memo, Dymally pointed out the Berkeley City Unified School District as a model for school desegregation with the widespread busing use. This program might be familiar to many today. Vice President Kamala Harris recounted her experience growing up in Berkeley and being bused to the elementary school in her 2020 presidential debate. Dymally's legacy is reflected in the content of public textbooks and schools named after him, including Mervyn M. Dymally School of Nursing at Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science in Los Angeles, and the Mervyn M. Dymally Senior High School in Watts. I would like to finish with my experience before this project. I had no idea who Mervyn M. Dymally was, and after reading the countless documents that we were presented with in the archives, it's easy to understand why he became a servant of the public office. Thanks to him, many barriers have been torn down and for the future generations, and allow a person like myself to flourish and have the option to maximize their potential. I'd like to close out with, I'd like to thank all the students who are part of this project with us. I'd like to thank Dr. Dennis for allowing me to be here this evening, and I'll pass the baton over to Kendall.
Hi, thank you. I will be introducing the section. Here we have the denial of a human right, the inequality of healthcare landscape. We want to allow the viewers to go through the letters themselves, but wanted to read a particularly impactful quote. This is from a piece that Mervyn Dymally wrote with Mary R. Warner in 1978, titled "Obstacles to Healthcare in the Black Community, a Denial of a Human Right." He says, "Yet, despite its importance, healthcare has never really gained prominence as one of the key human rights issues. We have tended to cite education, employment, housing, and criminal justice as the big 4 issues, while healthcare has come in a poor fit, if that. This is curious at best, since the consequences of deprivation of human rights are manifested in the mental and physical health. Conversely, without good health, other rights cannot be exercised, and these become relatively meaningless. Quality healthcare, therefore, ought to be and must be guaranteed as a basic human right." This is particularly relevant today as the country struggles with COVID-19 pandemic and communities of color continue to suffer and die at greater rates. And the letters in this section speak to the need for more Black doctors and better access to care in underserved communities. And with that, I'm going to pass this off to 2 students, Sierra Vega Worley and Ivan Rodriguez Garcia, for the next section.
Thank you, Kendall. Hello, everyone. My name is Sierra Vega Warholy. I'm a student at Cal State LA, and I'll be presenting this section, I Am Because We Are, Community Building and Coalition. I'm very grateful to have participated in the Mervyn M. Dymally collection. Mervyn M. Dymally prized coalition work during his time as an elected official and built his political career upon community building to support and serve the members of his community. Dymally supported grassroots movements and collaborated among them to support campaigns that would address impoverished communities with assistance and stability programs, such as his work with the Poor People's Campaign that began with Martin Luther King Jr. Dymally was deeply passionate about the livelihood of his own communities, as well as others across the country who faced issues of employment, income, housing, healthcare, and economic development. To achieve opportunities and resources for impoverished communities, Dymally built many valuable relationships with various social justice leaders with familiar beliefs to serve their communities. He united with the Japanese American community, the United Farm Workers, UFW, the Stonewall Democratic Club, women's groups, and Chicano leaders to support the kaleidoscope of individuals that they serve. Mervyn Dymally supported legislation that protected diverse groups from being discriminated against, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act, a bill that would have national reach. Dymally would also dedicate his time to women of color, focusing on their higher education, and through these pillars of the community, would cultivate resources that can benefit the whole. Mervyn Dymally approached a career of political service through coalition work to build up the social and economic conditions of diverse people, not only in his community, but in others across the nation. I'm extremely grateful to have participated in this unique opportunity to examine the archives that comprehensively articulate Mervyn Dymally's political career. It has been rewarding to participate as a student archivist with Cal State LA educators to deduce the meanings of primary evidence through historical context and come to a collective agreement that Dymally's career highlighted coalition work to elevate underserved communities. This coalition of students and educators that made the Mervyn Dymally exhibit possible are also dedicated to serving their communities through the preservation of its history, as well as contributing to the community's wealth of knowledge. And it is an honor to have participated. Thank you. And now I will hand it off to Ivan Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ivan Rodriguez Garcia. My pronouns are he and his. I'm very excited to announce that I was a student curator here for the Mervyn M. Dymally exhibit. So I researched a letter that talks about Dymally, in which Dymally sends a letter to Dolores Huerta regarding to meet with the Casa de Fruta workers. And that letter is expressing interest of Dymally advocating for the Casa de Fruta workers. And since Dolores Huerta has experience with doing grape strikes and doing all that's activism work, they wanted to know, to get advice and have mentorship to have a strike of their own based on the letter and research I have written. I wrote my research paper based on a feminist lens because personally growing up in a culture where there's patriarchal and sexist roles embedded within that traditionalism and conservative perspectives, I feel that I wrote her letter on the research paper based on a feminist lens and how she overcame the obstacles in these gender roles and the patriarchy to advocate for others within her community and support others. And I'm just very blessed to be a part of this experience and develop various skills that will benefit with like certain future aspects. Like, for example, me being a part of the Honors College will, the research skills that I have developed within this exhibit will allow me to be prepared for the thesis project. And I am very grateful and thankful for Dr. Dennis for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivan, so much. This kind of concludes this exhibit that we have worked with our students, but I wanted to also talk to you about what some of the events that are coming up. We have one more section, which is photographs of the students, so stick around and we'll show that to you. But in May, the students in History 3050 for Dr. Sarah Pugash will be also presenting their work on the Dymally collection as well. So if possible, I would love to have you guys come back in May. We'll send an invite out to the email addresses that we have on file for this event. And then you guys can come share space with Dr. Pugash's students. Her students are looking at African foreign policy. They're also looking at Caribbean history as well. So keep an eye out for that May event with Dr. Sarah Pugash. We also have another May event with LARP, our collaborative partner, and we will be hearing from women who've experienced incarceration. So you will be getting an email invite as well for that event. Last, I would just like to thank everybody that came to share space with us today, everybody that has worked on this exhibit, everybody that gave advice, guidance, and support. So before we go into our last little section about student work on this collection, again, I'm so grateful for everybody that is on this panel today. Azalea, can we go into that last section and just show them and then wrap this up for question and answers from the audience? Thank you. This last section was just photographs that we took over the course of the 3 or 4 semesters that we worked on this collection with our students. We had students that were freshmen, first time to the college, working in the archives alongside Azalea and Kendall, who joined us. So you guys can read through really just where we were at with this project, how it came to fruition. Most of the time, Azalea and I do organic work together, and it's worked out great. One of the best partnerships I've ever had to work with is with Azalea and Kendall. We also have our learning outcomes. It was important to have our students not just sit around and look at documents, but work with them, you know, increase their critical thinking skills. We also have a video from Jair, one of my students, the last class that we had in the special collections before the pandemic started. And he is going into teaching right now. And he has, you know, told me in this video that just the amount of skills that he learned from working with primary sources is really something that we'll take with him when he becomes a teacher. So, you know, it was just an experience that over the course of a year and a half that this came, you know, into our exhibit. I took pictures of the boxes. We had 300 boxes. Here is pictures that we've taken in the archives as well. You know, and so these students are not historians. They're not going into the history field, and that's okay. As a public historian, it's my job to reach out to many people as possible. And if they have a better critical thinking, historical thinking skills because of this activity, then we've done our job as well. So again, thank you so much for sharing space with us today. This is one of our pictures, our final pictures that we took in the class. This was the freshman class, the History 2050, Race and Ethnicity. And then here's our Honor College students as well. That was a great experience. And we also brought in, you know, other courses in our pandemic landscape as well. So please, again, keep an eye out for emails in May for 2 events that, again, will, you know, talk more about Dymally as well. Azalea, Kendall, would you like to close out with anything?
Sure, sure. I would just like to say thank you to everyone for joining us, and hopefully you enjoy the exhibit. The exhibit is public, so it's posted on our library website, so you can see it there. We can probably also add it to the chat, I believe. Can we?
Right.
So you all can see it and read through it.
Mm-hmm. Kendall, anything that you would like to say before we close out?
Just thank you to everybody who came. We have, you know, further reading on there. There's a lot of, particularly for those who are in the Cal State LA community, there's links to a lot of books and articles if you're interested in learning more about all of this.
Okay, that concludes our virtual opening exhibit. Once again, my name is Dr. Dennis from the History Department. Thank you for sharing space. We would like to open it up for question and answers right now. So stick around and chat with us. I would love to speak to some of the family members of Dymally as well. So, you know, interact with us in chat. And if not, we'll see you for our May events as well. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Donna Dymally. I appreciate this. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Casey. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you. I was reading the comments. Are any of the Dymally family still here? Dr. Dymally, Lynn, you're still here, right? Would you like to come on camera and so we can chat maybe?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I have one correction.
Okay.
In the very beginning, they stated that my dad came when he was 26 to the U.S., immigrated. He was actually 19.
Okay.
19 years old. So,
Yes,
but other than that, I mean, I am just so overwhelmed with the awesome work that the students did, and I could see that they really learned a great deal about someone who had an impact on their lives from a very early time, and on their parents' lives. So it was phenomenal. This is the best presentation I've ever seen given on my father. And I'm just so grateful and thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lynn, we want you to come back in May to Dr. Pugash's event. And it's just like 10 students, but they've been working so hard on his African foreign policy side. Azalea gave letters to them.
Okay.
So we're going to include them in the exhibit. I'll build their section out with Dr. Pugash.
Well, it's interesting because I actually went with my father on a trip to Africa, where we met several heads of state, and we were there during the war in Angola, and we had to avoid the missiles by Gaddafi. So I have some interesting stories to share with them.
I will put you in contact with Dr. Pugash because I'm going to help her plan it, and then that would be so great for them to hear that.
Mhm.
It's a small class, but Azalea was able to go on campus during the pandemic and get them letters and all that stuff. So I'll send you that information as soon as I get the flyer out and the date and everything. That would be lovely to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But I just want to thank everyone who worked to put this together. It was excellent. It was, and I can't wait to go in and read every little thing. There were a couple of pictures I had never seen before, and a few things that I didn't know. So it was very informative, and I'd like to thank everyone who came on as an audience to view the webinar. So thank you so much. You did an excellent job.
We're going to send you the link, so you'll have the link of the exhibit too.
Okay.
And it's going to stay up for a little bit. Azalea is going to work with Dr. Pugash, and we'll upload the metadata and build that section out after her final exam in May. So yeah, it's got a lot of potential, and I want you to be involved and stay with the students on this. The students would really love to hear from you.
And my father loves students. I can't tell you, he loved college road trips. He loved to interact with students. He had a lot of interns in his office. He always encouraged everyone to go to school for higher education. So he is so thrilled wherever he is, looking down on us. I mean, this would make him proud more than any other acknowledgement he's ever received, that the students actually did the work and are doing the work and going through those boxes. And I have to tell you, those 300 boxes, my son and I and other members of the family helped put together. There were weekends and days where we put it together so that it could all be delivered to the university. So I
love that.
It's good to know that it's being taken care of and being preserved and being appreciated by such a large audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for even making this available. We hope to get back into the archives when the pandemic is, or when stuff is, I guess, organized with Cal State, because I think it'd be just a great teaching tool to have Kendall and Azalea in there with these documents and showing them about, so, and again, it resonates with my students. which I thought was just, it was so, you know, it was great. That's why I thanked my teacher in the beginning, because he's the one that got me involved in all of this.
Wow. What a great, you know, being a retired college professor, what a great learning tool, you know, to actually participate in going through the archives and learning about someone.
Records that we went through, and it was in Mississippi, and you know, you need a passport to go down there, I think sometimes. And he's, you know, at 22, I was like, I don't know what this is. I felt like I was like Valerie. I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, like 25 years later, as a faculty member, you're like, I remember this experience and everything. So it stayed with me. You know, we're not in Mississippi, but we're better. We're here at Cal State LA now. So,
right.
Yeah. But I would love to continue working with you and bringing this up to light and everything with our students and working with the community and everything. So
great.
I really appreciate you coming to support this. So
it'll be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, anything else before we close out? Any other questions, comments? I think we're okay, right? I don't know how to end a webinar. I don't know really how. I know how to end my class, but that's about it. So I'll wait till I hear something.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis, for all your hard work.
Carlone, you're so cool. I'm so glad I met you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Kendall, the students. This is phenomenal. This is like, you guys just went next level on everything, and it's so good to see this put together. I'm so honored to just know you guys, know what you've done, the hard work it took to put this together with so many years. Kudos.
And we're going to do this in April for you. We can present this again for your reentry conferences.
I got to step my reentry game up, man.
Yes, sir.
I got to step my game up because I'm thinking I'm doing creative, and I realized this was done in 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm like, oh, I got to do something else.
This is our first webinar, so I'm just glad that the students were able to do this and everything. And I think we would have maybe had more students if it wasn't the pandemic. You know, it's just everything right now with the pandemic has made it so hard to get together.
You had a great audience. You had over 180.
Yeah. We had like 196 at one point, and then we kind of, dwindled it down. I think we're in midterms right now also with Cal State. So I'm just thankful that even 20 people came to share space with us for reals, So anything else, Kendall or Azalea?
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Be blessed. Great job.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Good job.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well done.
Bye. Take care. Thank you so much.
Take care. Be blessed.
Thank you, guys. Bye, Lynn. I'll talk to you. Okay. Bye. Yeah.
Okay, bye, Miss Lynn.
Everybody. Bye, Carlone. I'll talk to you later, Jess.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Mario, thank you so much. Bye, Dean. I'll see you soon, okay? Bye, Dean.
Nice everybody.
Job, nice job.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Dean.
All right.
Let's do this again soon.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dean Rodriguez.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Mario.